あの人の思いに少しでも近づきたいんです。
Howdy, how's it going? Lad here. We're back at it again with another traveler joining us. A familiar face and our very first backpack traveler, Rinyuu or EX Renu. She is a light apothecary of the famed faction and hailing from the memoirs of Orstera. She is a fantastic light elemental breaker, and she also exploits both fire and ice with her battle skills. But that's not all. She is potentially the best elemental support in the game, and possibly for general use. Gone are the days of the old Rinyuu where she stayed in the back. This EX Renu will be having your travelers hitting the front step and back step. But before we dive any further, let's go ahead and check her out. Ai Kakuma is her VA. Just like the OG version of Rinyuu, this is still the same VA. Iris from Mushoku and Isuzu from Amagi Park, roles of hers that I recognize. For her first notable damaging skill, it's an SP cost of 66. It's a 4-hit random target light elemental damage attack that exploits both fire and ice. This has a potency of 45. There's a low chance to inflict a 10% elemental defense down for 2 turns for each hit. And a max boost, this becomes a 5-hitter. Her second attack is a SP cost of 94, that becomes 75. She goes first and deals a 4-hit AoE light elemental damage attack that exploits both fire and ice again, potency of 35. She switches the front row to the back row, except for herself. Her third ability is an SP cost of 126 to 101. Once per turn, she deals a 3-hit random target light elemental damage attack that exploits both fire and ice at the beginning of the turn, and if she's in the front row, this becomes a 4-hitter. This is similar to Blue Dye's Javelin Rush or Solon's Flying Flame Lance. And then lastly, our TP skill. It's an SP cost of 300, and it's a 1-hit single target light elemental damage, exploits fire and ice with a potency of 630. Her EX skill and her support skills have been buffed. Anything in green is her global buffs. For her EX skill, originally goes after 5 turns, but now it has been decreased to any turn and has 2 usages per battle. She gives all back row previously, but now all allies auto revive 25% to 100% based on the boost level, and she restores all their BP by 4, but she goes last. Now for her ultimate at level 1 to level 10, originally, she gives one ally light damage attack up 10% at level 1 to 20% for 3 turns. This has now become universally a elemental damage up 10% at level 1 to 20% for 3 turns. And then she also gives them a 100% potency up and a damage cap of 10,000 at level 1 and 50,000 at level 10 for 1 turn. And if she casts her ultimate on herself, turn duration becomes 2 for the 100% potency and also the damage cap up. For her notable support skills, first one is Emergency Panacea. It's a 42 SP cost. She restores the entire front row, potency 65 to 155. And then for her global buffs, she also gives them a HP regen 2 to 5 turns based on the boost level, potency 100. And max boost, she gives them originally it was at 10%, but now has been buffed to a 15% physical and elemental defense up, and also a physical and elemental defense up. Her second support skill, Crusader Serum, is an SP cost of 52, gives all allies a physical and elemental attack of 10% to 15% now globally, and also a damage cap of 20,000 for 2 to 5 turns. And then she switches the front row, except for herself, to the back. For her third ability, she gives the front row HP restore, potency of 205. At the end of each action phase, she'll restore the HP 1 to 4 times based on the boost level, and at 6 stars, this becomes 2 to 6 times. And she also will remove some status ailments if she is in the front row. And then lastly, her last skill, it's an SP cost of 1 of 4, that becomes 83. She goes first, she gives all allies an HP barrier, 5% to 20% previously, to a now buffed 10% to 40% of her max HP. And then she also gives them previously a 10% physical elemental defense for 2 to 5 turns, which has now been buffed to 15%. Taking a look at her passive, or her gimmick, any ally switching row, she gives them a 15% elemental attack and defense for 1 turn. Her second passive, any ally switching row gets it's a 20% restoration of their max HP, a 3% SP restore to their own max SP, which now has been buffed to a 10% of their own max SP. And then her TP passive, or her third passive, any ally that switches to the back row gets a 1 BP recovery. And then she has a 10% in light resistance and 20% in dark. Taking a look at her stats, she has a normally high elemental defense, which is kinda useless. Her HP pool at 6 stars is 3442, making her one of the few apothecaries in the game that have rather low HP stats. Her elemental attack is at 435 at 120, and while it's not bad, it's not great either. she'll most likely be used as a HP regen traveler or breaker, depending on how you use her, so you'll probably want to increase this elemental stat as much as you can. But now for the main question, should you pull? She's great. She's our very first travel in the game that has now somewhat given us a reason to move some characters from the back to front. Her abilities are things that we've all seen before, but imagine giving one character some of the best support abilities in the game as a support, and you have EX Renu. With her arrival, EX Millard is now in the grave, OG Rinyuu, EX Primrose, Zolan, and possibly EX Lani will be benched. In one turn, with her emergency panacea, she's able to restore HP, give HP regen, and also buff physical and elemental attack all in one ability to your front row. We currently have no characters that can do all of this in one ability. Also recall that this ability has been buffed from a 10% to a 15% with added defense. This alone is both OG Rinyuu's Gracious Prayer and Crusader's Prayer combined. Subtract the status ailment immunity, and of course damage up. Next we have her Crusader's Serum, which is an upgraded version of OG Rinyuu's Crusader's Prayer. It gives a 15% attack and damage, and also a damage cap up of 20,000, while switching everyone in the front row to the back row, except for her of course. Which also leads us to the next topic, which is our gimmick. Anytime characters switch, all of them get a elemental attack and defense up, a 20% HP restore with their max HP, a buffed 10% SP restore with their max SP, and then finally a 1 BP recovery. This is like putting bacon, lettuce, tomatoes, ketchup to your grilled, toasty, buttery, crispy bread. Before we get to the meat, which is our ultimate, this essentially is a 40% HP restore and a 20% SP recovery all in the same turn. So to any characters that act after, this is what they'll all be getting. If you're finding yourself low in SP in battles, or Shanna didn't want to come home for you, our buffed EX Renu is the solution for you. But let's get into the meat of things. Her ultimate. Again, it's been buffed to originally, she supported only light elemental attackers, but now she is the main support that you want to bring along in dealing elemental damage, as now this ability enhances all elemental damage and gives that single ally a 100% potency up for one turn. With her abilities and potency up ultimate, and in the case that you need a traveler for the potency up ultimate reason alone, she completely benches Zolan with what she brings to the table. Of course, Zolan is still decent to bring along and up against an enemy that's weak to polearms with his flying flame lance or his EX skill, but other than that, EX Renu steps all over him. So another burning question you might have: who's better, Shanna or EX Renu? Shanna is still widely regarded as one of the best Clara supports, and is the ultimate support when it comes to taking any sort of damage to the face. As recall that her EX skill gives all your allies unsinkable, which of course lets them take any sort of damage and have them survive 1 HP. Again, of course, certain status effects like overkill override this, but the main aspect while having unsinkable is the fact that no one will lose their buffs when they get knocked out. Which also leads us to our next point, which is EX Rinyuu's EX skill. It's been buffed to where now she can activate her AoE skill, where she gives all allies auto revive on possibly turn 1. This EX skill is the same as EX Lani's ultimate, so essentially, Shanna has better defensive support skills with potential for quicker clears, and EX Renu has better attack and support skills, and with her global and C buffs, she now does a little bit of everything extremely well. You can even argue that she's a bit better than Shanna, but everyone has their own playstyle, and having them both in your team will satisfy the majority of your buffing and healing needs. Next, her A4 accessory. It's a 52 elemental attack, 400 to HP, and 50 to SP. Whenever the character equipped with this switches row, both travelers in the same row get a 15% elemental attack up and an additional 25,000 damage cap up for one turn. While not bad, it's decent if you're missing out on accessories that improve your passive or equipment elemental attack, but as we get more travelers, more and more of them will be able to satisfy capping your elemental attack to 30%. The additional damage cap of 25,000 is decent, but nothing too great. Let's go ahead and keep on moving along. Longevity. She's definitely here to stay. Take a look at Rinyuu's life as a support in this game. Even now, many of us are still using her, but now with EX Renu, I think it's time to officially bench OG Rinyuu, as the cooler EX Renu is on her way. Additionally, as a traveler who's mainly focused on support, EX Renu as a breaker is quite good as well too. She has a potential random target 5 hitter to light, ice, and fire, a 4 hit AoE to those elements, and then finally a 3 to 4 preemptive hit to those elements. And then of course a crazy 630 multi nuke attack. This is about as complete as you can get with a basic DPS at this time and age. So giving this to top tier support is fantastic. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish up. With their design 4 out of 5. She kinda looks plain, almost like a maid. I slightly prefer her OG variant, as she had a cool looking robe on. PA, 5 out of 5. Ears from Mushoku was pretty cool, and her voice as Rinyuu in COTC is quite noticeable. Abilities, 5 out of 5. This is a traveler who doesn't have much flaws. She does everything extremely well. Longevity, 5 out of 5. She was originally a light elemental attack support, but now she'll fit in any elemental teams moving forward, and of course any physical teams. Global buff, 5 out of 5. She was already good, but now with the buffs, she's amazing. Just look at the SP restore, that should get you pumped. Time limited, yes, she's part of the memory travelers alongside Susantos, Signa, Arika, OG Rinyuu, and of course others. Overall impression, this is a traveler that you may not want to miss. If you checked out my Shauna overview, I did not give her a full 5 out of 5 score, just because of the fact that she didn't offer any sort of buffing capabilities to either defense or attack. This buffed EX Renu is able to cap both attack and defense all by herself. Of course, that's after using her Emergency Panacea, followed by either her Crusader Serum or Gracious Serum. She is the full package of a support that I recommend new players and even OG players. It's not often that I give any travelers a 5 out of 5. With her buffs, and looking at the future, she is gonna be the main support for many upcoming battles. I'll definitely be pulling for her. I'd recommend getting her to Awakening 0. You can stay above 9,000 rubies, as again, we're waiting for the near collaboration. To those who have under 9,000 rubies, perhaps just stick with Solon for now. And then for those who are fortunate enough to get another copy of her, or if you're like me, who's gonna pull one copy and then wait for her Awakening Stones to fall to the exchange, you definitely want to use an extra Awakening Stone for her ultimate to be at level 10. That's going to give you another usage and also a 5% to elemental damage up. Now, she has quite a lot of good abilities. Awakening 3 or A3 would be a good stopping point for extra stats, and then for A2, an additional 1000 HP for her HP barrier skill, and of course, at A3, an additional skill. Anywho, that was it for EX Renu. The developers must like Rinyuu quite a bit to be buffing her like this. I sort of wished her story was different and we found out more about her at the end of her story. But with that, let me know if you'll be pulling for EX Renu. I'll catch you next time. Take care of yourself like always. Flat out.